Yo, what's going on? So today I want to try something a little bit new and something that I started to just sort of experiment with. Recently I was just kind of messing around on some different synths and I noticed a lot of them actually have audio inputs where you can sort of put audio into a synth and then the synthesizer will process it. When you process sound through the audio in of a synth, it can sometimes work in sort of unconventional ways, which I think is a lot of times a good way to come up with new ideas. So today I'm actually going to grab the guitar, put it through the Monologue, and then maybe put it through some other synths as well, and see if we can come up with some cool sound. And I'll try to just show that even though that this sort of works in really strange ways, which you'll see, it can still come up with some really cool sounds and sounds that otherwise I really wouldn't have thought about making. So I'll grab the guitar, plug it into the Monologue, let's see what we can do. Okay, so right now I have the electric guitar plugged directly into the Monologue. It's not being processed anywhere else. It's not plugged into an amp. It just goes straight from the guitar to the audio input of the Monologue, and then the output is going to the speakers. And then on the Monologue, I just have an initialized patch, 1 VCO. As you can see right now, if I just play the guitar, nothing happens. All you can hear is the sound coming from the strings itself. Nothing's being picked up from the pickups and coming through the Monologue. And that happens for kind of a strange reason, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I take VCO1 and I turn it all the way down, now if I press a key, nothing happens. Nothing's being processed because I have both oscillators turned all the way down. But if I play a chord and then I press a key, you can hear the signal start to come through. So the audio input of the Monologue is sort of synced to the oscillators in that you can only hear the sound come through if the synth would be making a sound. So if I turn VCO1 up, I'll play a chord. You can hear it's kind of being stacked over top of the VCO. So what we want to do is allow the audio input sounds to be processed, and we want to be able to hear it without me having to press a key every single time. And that's where the sequencer comes in. I did a video previously about how much I love the sequencer on the Monologue. I think it's a great beginner sequencer, super easy to use, and it still has a good amount of capability. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to record a sequence into the sequencer. I don't care which notes I actually play, it's just whether or not I want sound to be heard from the guitar, because both VCOs are turned down all the way, so no matter what notes I play in, it's not going to make a difference. It's just going to allow us to hear the guitar. So just to start off, I'm going to record a sequence and I'm just going to play a single note into every single step. So now if I go to the notes on the Monologue, we can see that there's a note in every single step of the sequencer. So I'll go ahead and press play, and you can see it's starting to play, but we can't hear anything obviously because VCO1's turned all the way down. If we turned it up, we'll hear that single note that just will continue to play. And now similarly, if we play a chord on the guitar, every step that goes through, it's going to allow the guitar sound to come through the audio output. Here's how it sounds. So as you can hear, it has kind of this natural vibrato sound because it's letting us hear the guitar, not hear the guitar, hear the guitar, not hear the guitar. And then by changing the tempo on the Monologue, it sort of allows me to change the vibrato speed. So if I turn that down, let's say I'll put it to 65 just so you can hear it. So that's how we can use the sequencer on the Monologue to process the audio and give us this sort of vibrato sound. But the other thing that I mentioned is the audio in also goes directly through the filter cutoff. And this is a fully analog machine, so it is an analog filter as well. So if we want to just use the filter cutoff, and then maybe we can use the LFO to control the filter as well and give us a cool sound there. What we would do in order to not have to press a key every time we hear is we go to the slide animation on the sequencer, and we can see that right now there are no slides. Typically what a slide would do is it connects two notes in the sequencer. So if I highlight every single one of those buttons, now all of the notes are connected in the sequencer. That means if I play a chord again, it's just a clean signal that's going directly through the synthesizer and through the output. So now if I turn down the filter a little bit, you'll see how that affects the audio. And then now I have the LFO affecting the filter cutoff. So I'll turn that rate up and intensity up a little bit. And now you'll hear the wobble of the filter cutoff being affected by the LFO. Here's how it sounds. And we can make that really severe if we turn the filter cutoff way down, and it will just be going like this. And then similar with when we're using the synth itself, we can change the shape of the LFO. So if we want more of like a sawtooth wave, we turn that up, and then it will be more of a coming in and dropping. And that gives us sort of a similar effect as the sequencer does. So I've opened up the filter back all the way, so we just have the clean signal going through. Because now what I want to try is to, rather than having each note connected, giving us a full clean signal on the sequencer, I'm going to just connect some of the notes, and it'll give us sort of a controlled vibrato where we decide when we want the sound to cut out and come back in. So here's what I mean. Let's say we just select some random steps here in the slide category. Now we can hear where these notes are connected and where they aren't, because the sound will be cutting in and out based on that. Here's how it sounds right now. So now that I have a sequence that I like with our clean signal, I can now put the filter back down and affect that with the LFO, and it'll give us sort of a stacking ability with those two effects. So let's see how that sounds. So as you can see, just from messing around on here, it's laid out very differently than if you were trying to use like an effect pedal or something along those lines. It just gives you a really different workflow and some capabilities that you wouldn't necessarily have on a pedal. So now I'm thinking we can pull out the Digitone, because that also has an audio input which allows us to use the effects built into the Digitone. And then we can just continue to craft this sound and see if we can come up with a sound that we might want to make a song out of. Let's do it. So now I've sent the output of the Monologue into the input of the Digitone. And then I have the Digitone output going into the MPC just in case we want to record any chords, which we can then use for a track afterwards. So in the Digitone, what you want to do to use the effects on external gear is once you have it plugged into the input, you press Function and LFO, and then whichever inputs you have it plugged into, you can turn the corresponding knob to turn the volume up. And then we now have access to the chorus, delay, reverb, and overdrive on the Digitone on our external gear. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the reverb up on our sound, just to give it a bit more space and sort of like an ambient sound. And then I'm also going to turn up the chorus a little bit, just to give it a bit more depth. So I'm really liking how this effect is sounding. We started with just a clean signal. Like I said, the guitar's not going into any other gear or pedals or amps. It's literally going straight into the Monologue, which is going into the Digitone and going straight to the speakers. So I think considering these effects are just coming out of synthesizers, it's still giving us a good amount of control and flexibility. So now I'm thinking we can record a couple chords into the MPC, and then we'll see if we can come up with a full song out of this sort of sound that we developed. So let's do it. So the first thing I'm going to do to lay the chords on top of is I'm going to record some drums, but because I want this track to sound pretty live, since I'm using the guitar and I'll probably use the live bass for the bass line, is I want to try to make the drum sound as live as possible as well. And the easiest way to do that is to just use a drum break. So I have a drum break loaded up, we'll record that at 90 BPM, and then I can start adding the chords on top of it. Let's do it. So now that we have those chords laid on top of the drums, I'm going to go grab the bass, and we can do a live bass line on top of this sequence and see if we can get a real nice crunchy live sounding track. Let's do it. I hope you liked how this track turned out, and I hope this video showed that you can use the audio inputs on your synths to try to inspire some new and interesting sounds. But if you liked the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what you want to see in a future video. Love you guys so much. Appreciate you.